Hello students of class 10. Today we are going to revise a chapter that is there in your syllabus for your exam in February, and that is the passing away of Bapu. You have already done this chapter, but let us revise this chapter once again. Now, this chapter is an extract from Nayantara Saigal's memoirs, Prison and the Chocolate Cake. And as the title of the chapter suggests, the passing away of Bapu, that is, it talks of the death of Gandhiji. Bapu, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, was fondly called Bapu by people in India because he was like a father figure to the nation, because he alone was instrumental in bringing about that patriotic feeling in the people and arouse in them that love for the motherland, where every Indian they became aware of their independence, and they fought tooth and nail to bring the independence, means to free the country from the shackles of the British rule. Now, this is an event. Gandhiji died in 1948, 30th of January, that is after independence. So people were very happy at that time, and nobody had expected such a thing. But in this chapter, what we are going to look at is that how what was the reaction of people in general, how the narrator, that is Nayantara Saigal herself, felt at the loss of Bapu. Now let us read the chapter. I was having tea at home on the evening of 30th January 1948 when I was called to the Birla house by an urgent telephone. So all of a sudden, when this narrator was having tea, she received a call and she was asked to go to the Birla house. Gandhiji had been shot on his way to a prayer meeting. I was numb with shock as I got into the car. What is the meaning of numb? Numb means you don't have any feelings. Sometimes when it's very cold, you're out, or when you touch ice, your fingers become numb. That is, you don't have any feelings, because all of a sudden such a thing could happen. Nobody had expected. It was an absolute shock. So that is why the author tells us that she was numb with shock. That is, she didn't know how to react, and she just got into the car to go to the Birla house. At the Birla house, Gandhiji's relatives and followers had gathered round his body. So the body of Gandhiji was kept at Birla house. There was a silence in the room as Gandhiji breathed his last. So there was an unnatural silence. Okay, nobody spoke, because nobody was able to come to terms with the fact that Gandhiji was no more. Words of Bapuji's death had spread through Delhi like flame fanned by wind. Flame, you must have heard the idiom that spread like wildfire. So flame fanned by wind. So if there is a fire and if it's fanned, what happens? It burns, with more, force in that way. So that is, the news spread like wildfire. So, immediately everybody knew about it. Sad groups of men and women had collected round the Birla house. So nobody could enter, but they were all around. Okay, out of the window, those who could not gather there at the Birla house, they just means there were many houses, so they just opened the windows and they were just looked out. Okay, because they wanted to catch a glimpse of the father of the nation for one last time. Out of every window, one could see a brown blur of faces. Blur means which is not clear. Okay, so brown, so you can understand that even the narrator was shocked. Okay, and while she was passing, by, she when she just looked around, she just saw faces, which was not very clear. Brown blur, that's brown faces, blur. That is, it was not clear at all. There was an unnatural silence. Yes, just now I said, because nobody could, means nobody was expecting such a thing, because it was after independence. So people didn't know how to react. People couldn't understand how to react. It was as if time stood still for those few minutes. Yes, as soon as they heard the news, people didn't know how to react. So for them, they thought that they didn't know how to react. The people were stunned to speak in the beginning. That's the same way, the same thing. Later, they clamored. Clamored means shouting loudly. Okay. Later, they clamored wildly, shouting and crying. That is, initially it was they couldn't speak. They didn't know that. Means they were trying to realize the fact that is it true? Is it true that means our dear beloved Bapu is no more? Is it true? So when they realized the fact, that yes, this is true, they just wanted to, means it was at that time they wanted to have a wanted to see Bapu for one last time, and that is why they started clamoring. They started shouting very loudly, wildly. That is, they became sort of violent and shouting and crying. So crying out of pain, out of means agony, anger, everything, every sort of feeling, or rather I would say every sort of negative feeling came into them. They jostled one another. Jostle means push. Okay, one another. Force means that means there was a big crowd and they tried to make way by pushing each other, and as a result they jostled one another in a stampede. So stampede means that is, they pushed each other in such a way as though there was a stampede. That is, you will people will step upon you. That is stampede. To break into the house. So common people were not being allowed to enter the house, so they just pushed through the crowds and they wanted to break into the house to get a a glimpse of Bapu. They calmed a little when it was announced that they would be allowed to see Gandhiji before his funeral. Yes, only when when the crowd became so violent, okay, out of shock, out of sadness, out of anger, then people inside the Birla house, they told the crowd that okay, please don't behave in this way. You would be able to everybody would be allowed to see Gandhiji for the last time. When one is faced with the shock of a loved one's death, one whimpers. that is, whimpers means crying, in a low tone. It's given, the meaning is given in a very low tone. Why? Because you know uh, one doesn't understand that what that person will do, without that loved one. So Gandhiji was, he was just not like, means he was called the father of the nation, because he was like a father to every people in India. That is the reason passing away, means this death of Gandhiji was like the death of a loved one in a family. One whimpers, "What will become of me now that he has left me?" This was surely the question uppermost in the mind of the mourning people. So they had fought with Gandhiji. Okay, Gandhiji had led so many movements to bring about the independence, okay, of India. So they thought that, now that Bapu is no longer, then who will guide them? Like, they are without any direction. They didn't know that, means his presence for them was a great boost in their confidence. That is, they could immediately do whatever he would ask them to do. So his passing away was like a passing away of a loved one in a family. It was a question in many of our hearts. Okay, they look like lost children. It was like the question in many of our hearts as we sat, still shocked and unbelieving. We listened to the broadcast. Now, broadcast, there was no television at that time. Broadcast means broadcast through the radio, telling the people of India that their Bapu was no more. So, whoever had a radio at that time, all the one news that was being aired at that time was that Bapu was dead and he was no. So with this we come to the means end of the first unit. We'll do the next unit in the next class. Thank you.